Happy New Year. I know it's too late to be saying that, but since this is the first episode of 2025, I thought I'd say it one last time. Now, the past couple of years haven't looked great in terms of consumer spending. Inflation and high interest rates means Canadians are being more judicious on where we spend our money. But now with inflation in check and interest rates dropping, how long before we see a positive effect? Is there any sign of rebound? Well, this episode, we're going to take one final look back at this past holiday season spending to see how it went and what it might tell us about the coming year. Why? Because it's just good business. For the first episode of 2025, I welcome back Sean McCormick. He's our VP of Business Development at Moneris Data Services. Sean, first of all, Happy New Year.
Same to you, my friends.
And I feel like this is the last time I can actually say Happy New Year before we stop.
Definitely. I stopped last Wednesday, but definitely bring it on.
I hope you had a good holiday.
I did. It was outstanding. Got a little bit of downtime with the family. It was good.
Well, before we begin with the data story for this month, I want to congratulate you for being on an award-winning podcast.
Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to contribute to an award-winning podcast, my friend. You're the brains of the organization. We've known that for a long time.
So for those who don't know, Just Good Business was nominated back in November by the Canadian Podcast Awards. And we won. We won Outstanding Business Series in December. Our other podcast, Yes, We Were Open, also won for Outstanding Branded Series. So flowers all around to Moneris Podcasts. And I thank everyone who's helped. Sean, you've been obviously a fixture for Just Good Business and a big help in making this a really good show.
Oh, well, thanks, brother. It's lots of fun talking consumer spending. It's what we do all day, every day in my business unit. So it's definitely fun to talk about it in an open forum.
So let's talk about holiday spending. Let's put a cap on 2024. This is the last we're going to speak of it. But I mean, leading into the holidays, we were talking about, and for the last few years, what the busiest shopping days were for the holidays. And now we have the numbers in for this past holiday season. What did they show us?
Yeah, it was a bit of a change of course for Canadian consumers who previously in the last few years, what we've seen is that the busiest shopping day is a couple of days before Christmas, 3 days before Christmas, 2 days before Christmas, depending on what day Christmas has fallen on the last few years. This time around, it was Black Friday, November 29th. That was the busiest shopping day of the holiday season. And we consider the holiday season to be from the beginning of November until the end of December.
Right.
And I've heard a number of takes about why that might be. I truly believe that now that we have the holiday spending numbers in, which we can talk about, more wholesomely, I think that Canadians tightened their belts this year.
Right.
And what we saw was generally flat year over year spend for the entire holiday season. And I think that's because of a belt tightening. And when you consider the results that way, it should not be a surprise that Black Friday, which represented an opportunity for consumers to save money on items that they were going to buy anyway, I think consumers were more receptive to that shopping event more than they have been in previous years. And I'll point to a couple of data points that will make that a little bit clearer. One of them is that year over year, Black Friday dollar volume was up 11%. That's massive year over year. So 2024 Black Friday versus 2023 Black Friday was plus 11%. The year over year data last year, so comparing 2023 Black Friday to 2022 Black Friday, was flat.
Right.
So what we saw were Canadian consumers rushing out to the stores or online, whatever the case may be, they were buying en masse. And what we saw over the holiday season as a whole, right across the country, was a 2% bump year over year.
Right.
Well, that 2% is accommodated with inflation.
Sure.
Like we're talking about dollar volume pumping through the pipes.
Yeah.
So flat year over year spend, Black Friday, massive hit. And therefore it was the champion of the shopping days in the 2024 holiday shopping season.
So what I'm hearing is overall spending was flat if you accommodate for inflation. But Black Friday, which in the past few years, now let's talk about like historically, Black Friday was known as a big, busy shopping day, but in the past few years, it wasn't even the busiest shopping day of the year. It's been usurped by either the weekend before Christmas or the days leading up to. So it's been a few years since Black Friday was the big winner. This year, because everything was overall low, and like you said, Canadians are tightening their belts, maybe looking for those deals. And we've spoken in the past that a way that maybe merchants can do better business around the holidays is to offer better deals around Black Friday. That maybe that happened, and that's what Canadians were looking for, were the deals.
Yeah, and I think that interest rates are a leading indicator, right? When the Bank of Canada lowers interest rates, it generally takes a year to a year and a half for the full effect of those interest rate declines to be felt. And conversely, when they raise interest rates, it takes a year to a year and a half, because we're talking about mortgages and long-term loans, et cetera. So it could be that what we saw in this holiday season, the story was being written for the last 18 months. And what we see now in looking back at November, December 2024 was impacted by all kinds of inflationary and interest rate related policy decisions that were manifesting themselves in a flat holiday season.
And interest rates have dropped the last few months. And in the elevator news network, when I've been in the office, I have seen a little bit of bright light showing that real estate in Toronto, at least, seems to be ticking up a bit. So hopefully we're starting to see the leading edge of that recovery, right?
Yeah, we'll start to, when you look at its discretionary spend is where you look for those green shoots. So are Canadians spending more money on restaurants?
Right.
These kinds of things, entertainment, is that sort of spend, is that increasing? And we haven't seen that yet. Right. 2024 was a tough year. We talk about retail and apparel a lot, you and I, but those are two categories that are a really good sort of a thumb in the air to gauge the health of Canadian spending. And both of those categories had a tough one in 2024, but it's an economy. It's a capitalist economy. What goes down must come up. What goes up must come down. And we're definitely in a trough right now. Where we are in that cycle, we hope we're coming out of it, but we won't know until we're out of it.
Sure.
Right? When the birds are chirping, it's too late.
Right. So let's talk about this holiday season. If Black Friday is number one, what were the other days?
In order of 1, 2, and 3, number 1 was Friday, November 29th. That was Black Friday. Number 2 was Monday, December 23rd. So 2 days before Christmas. Sure. And then coming in third was Friday, December the 20th. So more people spending money on the Friday before Christmas than the Saturday and Sunday before Christmas.
Yeah, that's interesting that the weekend wasn't up there, but the Friday before and the Monday after were.
Yes, sir.
In terms of how it looks across the country, which regions came out on top?
Well, I would say broadly that if you pulled Ontario out of the cohort, the national number would look a lot better. Ontario total spend looking at 2024 season versus 2023 season, Ontario was down 4%.
Oh, wow.
And that's even more pronounced, again, when you consider that inflation was 2%, 2.5%.
Yeah.
So Ontario definitely pulling the national number down. Regional variances across the country. So we had 3 provinces that were 6% above last year's numbers for the holiday season. Alberta was plus 6%, Quebec was plus 6%, and Saskatchewan was up 6%. All of the other regions, less pronounced to flat, but Alberta, Quebec, and Saskatchewan definitely leading the rest of the country. And Ontario and the territories were the 2 regions that were below flat, and both of those were at minus 4%. But the impact that the territories would have had on the national number would be minimal because the volume of transactions as a percent of the whole is very insignificant.
Interesting stuff. Hopefully we're at the bottom of the trough and we'll have better news stories to share this year. And Sean, thank you again so much for everything you did last year. This year, if people are watching this video, we're going to try to do these segments more on video and have them available on YouTube. So thank you in advance for joining me for 2025.
My pleasure, my friend.
And here's hoping for better consumer spending stories to come.
Yes, sir.
That's all we have time for this episode. Before I sign off, I'll post a link to Sean's team at Moneris Data Services in the show notes. If you're listening right now and you have any questions about anything business related, you can email us at podcast@moneris.com and we'll try to answer them in future episodes. On behalf of Sean, myself, and the rest of Moneris, it's just good business saying thank you for listening and see you in February.